What's going on, folks? Welcome back to Beans to Greens. In today's video, I'm going to be covering plant training techniques. Plant training is one of the most important things that you could do to increase your overall yield. I'm going to be covering high stress training and low stress training, and I'm going to be demonstrating on each of these plants. High stress training is where we're removing things from the plant in order to get all of our lower branches to catch up to our upper branches, which will lead to a more even canopy. Whereas low stress training, we're not going to be removing anything from the plant, but more manipulating it in order to get these lower branches to catch up to the higher branches, again, making a more even canopy. So why don't I grab that camera, we'll zoom in a little bit, and then we'll hop right on into it. All right, folks, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some high stress training on this plant and low stress on this one. And the reason I'm going to do some high stress training on this plant is that this plant popped a little bit earlier. And so it grew a little bit faster than this plant. It just had a little bit of a head start. And what I'm hoping to achieve with the high stress training is that this plant will kind of catch up to this one a little bit. With high stress training, you're going to slow the growth down a little bit with the plant, not a ton, but you will slow the growth down. And that's one of the benefits of the low stress training, is that it shouldn't slow down the growth at all. So the first thing that we're going to do with this high stress training is, if you look at the top of the plant here, you have what's called the apical meristem, and that's at the very top of the plant. The majority of the growth hormones go to the top of the plant into this apical meristem because it's trying to get as tall as possible, and it does that in nature because it's going to be competing with other plants. So it's going to try and grow as high as possible in order to gather as much sunlight as possible. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to remove that. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the hormones and it's going to distribute it throughout the plant a little bit more, and it's going to cause all the other branches to grow a little bit faster. And you could do this a couple of ways. You could literally just take your finger and you could kind of bend it over and snap it off just like that. Or you could even take a pair of garden shears and you could cut it off as well too. I find that it's easy for it to just kind of come off if you just bend it. So the other thing that we're going to do is, all of these branches, they'll grow faster if sunlight is able to get to it, or in our case, growing indoors, our grow light is going to get to it. So what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to remove some of these leaves here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to start removing leaves, because now it opens up the canopy for the sunlight to now reach this branch, which that will grow faster. I'll do the same on this side. And again, it now opens up this branch here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to remove a bunch of the big fan leaves in order to achieve this. And again, what it's going to do is it's really just going to open up the canopy in this plant so that all of these lower branches are able to get good sunlight to them, and they will end up growing a lot faster because of it. So just keep taking off these fan leaves, and now you could see that all of these lower branches are now exposed to the light itself, to the sunlight, and it looks like it's opened up a lot more. Now, one thing to note on here, and actually, I just saw this, I'm going to go ahead and remove both of these fan leaves as well, because now we can get at those real lower leaves here, or lower nodes. That's another thing to note, is that each set of these branches, this is called a node. Now, going back a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about topping the plant. You don't want to top the plant too early because, again, it is a form of high stress training and it will slow the growth down a bit. And if the plant is too young, you run into issues where it might not rebound as fast or at all. So what I like to do is I like to wait until there's at least 4 to 5 nodes. So if we count up, we've got one here, we've got our second node here, third node, fourth node, fifth node, sixth node. We got 2 tiny guys right here, which would be our 7th, 8th, and 9th. So I really topped this one a little bit later than I normally would, but you'll see. Now, it seems like we took a lot of vegetation off of this plant, and don't get me wrong, we did. You could see it all right here. However, this will rebound very fast. You won't see really any issues with the plant at all, and so we're just gonna allow that to now rebound, and we'll see how these other branches really catch up. Okay, this one we're gonna do some low stress training. Now, there's a couple of ways we can do or go about this. One technique is called leaf tucking, and that's where you're taking the leaves that are normally blocking lower nodes, and you might just bend them down, or you could actually tuck them underneath some other leaves. And what that's going to do is it's now going to open up the canopy and allow that light to now penetrate down to these lower nodes. So if you look at it, you want to get all of your top or your upper fan leaves out of the way and really manipulate it so it could kind of open up the lower canopy here. So this one here, I see that we got another node coming up here. So what I'll do is I'll take this leaf here and I will go ahead and tuck it underneath that node. Now, if you look here, what's going to end up happening is now the sun is, or our grow light's now able to penetrate down, give this node some more sunlight where it'll actually be able to grow up, and it'll catch up to the other nodes here that are a little bit higher up. So I'm going to do the same thing again with this one. So we've got our node right there, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this leaf and I'm going to tuck it under that. And now, if you look at it, this has now exposed these nodes down here. It has exposed these nodes here, and it's exposed these nodes and these ones as well too. So now if you look, we have a much more open canopy, much more open where the grow light is able to penetrate down and hit all of these nodes with light, and they will grow up faster. What we're looking for is we want all of the branches to be at the same level. If we're able to achieve that, we'll get a lot more bud growth. All of these sites will create buds. Each one of these sites will create buds, and so we'll have more buds, and you'll notice as you grow, the more intense light at the top will create bigger buds, whereas lower, where you don't have that light penetration, you're going to get much more leafy, larvae, airy buds that aren't dense at all, and it's just not really what we're looking for. So these are the two techniques. One thing to note, that when you are doing the leaf tucking here, sometimes the leaves will want to come undone, and so you might have to go in there maybe, a couple times a day and just check and retuck these leaves in as well too. So another thing that we can do with low stress training as well, and these branches aren't quite long enough, but I like to use just this gardening Velcro. I don't know really what to call it, but I think it's a gardening tie, and you could use a bunch of different things. I like to use this one that's Velcro because once I transplant out of these hard pots, I go into fabric pots, and this will actually adhere straight to the fabric pot. It'll stick to it, so it's really nice. But typically what we would do is we would just take that garden tie, and we could take everything, and we could just, we could even take the whole plant and bend it over, and now it's exposing all these other lower plants or other lower nodes, and they'll grow up. Also, this apical meristem, if it's a little bit lower, the plant knows that, and it'll realize that it is now lower, and it will move those growth hormones throughout the plant a little bit more and distribute them a little bit more even. So in a situation with this plant where it's now topped, you'll see the two tops start growing, and then what I'll do is I'll typically tie those back, and again, it opens up the canopy and it allows all these lower branches to really catch up. So Those are the two forms of training, and they do a lot for yield. I mean, a lot. It's one of the most important things that you could do to increase your yield. All right, folks, so that's the two training techniques that I wanted to demonstrate today. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is that each one of these leaves you want to look at as a solar panel for your plant. It's getting that sunlight and it's creating energy for the plants. So by not removing the leaves, the plant should actually grow a little bit faster. So I'm really hoping that this plant is going to catch up to this plant. One thing I did do off the camera is I took all the leaves and I cut them up and then I put them on top of the soil. That's referred to as a chop and drop, you may have heard. But what it's going to do is it's actually going to create a mulch layer on top of the soil where it'll keep the top of the soil moist, and that's really good for our beneficial bacteria and microbes so they continue to break things down. And they'll also break these leaves down and turn that into nitrogen. So it's a bit of a regenerative process. So I really hope you enjoyed everything today, found it educational. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Please hit that like button, please subscribe, and leave some comments below. I really want to know what you guys have grown on in your gardens, so please share that as well. As always, until next time, let's keep growing together. Do you